Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today I'm taking a look at this, the 1/72 scale World War II RAF Vehicle Set from Airfix. So join me as I get stuck inside the box and see what this kit is like. So on the outside you can see that we have an image of the various vehicles which are included, sort of paired up with what appears to be, I want to say that's a Lancaster, but the Lancaster with the radial engines. Over here on the left hand side you can see again some images of what's included, and then we have an item code of A03311. The box has taken a bit of damage, but that's my fault for having it in the stash for probably a decade now, and not how it would have come from the shop. On this side you can see these are potentially built up versions or maybe renders. I think they might actually be renders of the different things that were included in the kit, and then we do have some license information over here on the right hand side and a Cartograph logo. Cartograph make the decals for Airfix, and they're normally to a pretty high quality. If we turn over to this side you can see that we have some information about the vehicles which are included. We have a standard light utility vehicle, also known as a Tilly. We have a motorcycle and a Bedford, either water carrier or light truck. So you get the option to build it in one of two ways. There are some Humbrol paint suggested colours here, and then one flying hour. Flying hours are coupons, cut them out, keep them. If you're a member of the club, you can redeem that against more kits. If you're not a member of the club, do still cut them out and send them to Models for Heroes, who can use it for their charitable work. Skill level of 2, so Airfix thinks this is not going to be necessarily the easiest thing to build in the range, but should be moderately okay. And there are 66 pieces included in the kit. The thin edges, or the shelf edges, only feature the same information that we've already seen. However, you probably noticed there was no tooling information on there. Airfix has, in more recent years, been of the habit of putting tooling information on. However, in this particular case, they haven't. The main reason for that, and as you can probably see, is that this is an older boxing. This clearly predates when Airfix were putting tooling information on their kits. We don't have all of this Airfix Club information on the box anymore because it goes out of date. So this sort of already dates it to a certain time period. Let's get the box open. So in this time period as well, the fun thing about these boxes was that they used to put lots of hints and tips and stuff on the edges of the box, but these things kind of like don't age particularly well because things change. Some of these things are still good bits of information, but you know, some of these links and things may not work properly anymore. So let's have a look at the instructions. That's where I like to begin. And I think the first thing that we can see is that we've actually got a little Airfix Club membership form. So this was sort of before things were more online. So this would have been like for the old club. Yeah, so this is pre-revamp. Join the Airfix Club today from only $7.99, but I think you would have just joined the club and then you had to buy the exclusive kit separately. So yeah, that's a bit of a blast from the past. So instructions then, typical format from Airfix. We have information about the vehicles at the top here, a little bit of warning about making sure you wash your kit because there might be sprue release on there. First page has some guidance effectively, and then the assembly icons are down the bottom here. The next page over is where we begin our construction, and you can see that the first thing we're going to construct is our Bedford truck. And there's quite a few details and things in here. There is a little note here, I think, saying you need to cut this part away from the chassis, and then we have other elements of the chassis which need to be glued in. I believe this is the engine, and then we go into the cab. There are decals that go inside of the cab, so probably worth painting it before you put those decals in. Attach the cab to the chassis, and then the sort of rear bulkhead, and then the axles. And we do have a note here, we can position our wheels if we'd prefer, but obviously we've got to pick one position and leave it at that. Assemble the bonnet, add the glazing, add the bonnet, add the doors. I believe the doors, yep, doors can be positioned open if you'd prefer. Then we add the roof, and that's it in the general sort of build of the Bedford truck, because when we get to step 15 we now have the choice whether we want to do it with like the box body, or if we want to do it as I think it was a fuel truck or a water truck. I can't remember which one did they say it was. Water carrier. It's a water carrier. So you have the option to do either, but you have to pick one. So you can see the steps here are simultaneous. They are side by side. The box body gets built up. The water tank gets built up. Then we add those onto the back of the truck, and then we are pretty much done. So yeah, fairly straightforward. Instructions here are laid out quite nicely. Maybe not quite up to the current standard from Airfix, because there would have been a little bit more colour in current instructions, but these are okay. The Tilly then is effectively the same kind of construction. You build it up like a box, you add your chassis, you add your chairs, you add your bonnet components. There are decals inside for your sort of dials and things. Add those elements onto your chassis, and then we turn over the page. Add our axles, our wheels can go on. Again, the wheels can be positioned, turned if you would like. The doors can be positioned open. Then we can add the roof, and that's it for the Tilly, 15 stages. And then the motorcycle, you can see the motorcycle effectively consists of what, 3 parts? So that's a very simple construction as well. But we do have the choice to position the bike in 2 orientations effectively. So yeah, instructions are fairly straightforward, up to the normal standard, or a slightly earlier standard from Airfix, but they are okay. Painting instructions are here. They come on a separate sheet. They are in full colour. At the top here we have our Bedford water carrier, or if we did it as the utility sort of truck, then we have the Tilly, and nothing for the motorcycle, but the motorcycle I presume you would just paint one colour anyway. Decal placement here indicated too, and it appears that we're generally going for dark earth, matte black and some khaki drill. This is set up for Bomber Command, so 1943, so probably worth pairing this with like a little diorama with a bomber of some sort. This brings us on to the decals. There's only one small sheet of decals. They are printed by Cartograph of Italy, so they should be up to a pretty decent standard. They are a slightly older offering of decals, and I recently built, and I think it was the Spitfire Mark 5A from Airfix from the same kind of time period. The decals are a little bit thicker than current Cartograph decals, but they do go onto the model quite nicely. Printing is pretty decent. You can see like even the little dials and things have been nicely reproduced. Registration is good too. So yeah, I don't anticipate having any problems with applying these to the model. This then brings us onto the bag of bits. And you can see that I've not even had this one open. This one has been sitting in my stash for such a long time, and I've not even had the bag open. I think it's one of these kits that you kind of bury it under other kits and then you forget about it. So clear parts, 1 frame of clear parts is included. So we'll have a look at that in its own bag. So these have our kind of windscreens and things and doors. There is a little bit of stringing from the plastic, I think, in places. You can see if I can get my cocktail stick out. There is a little bit of stringing of plastic in a few places. It's like flash. There are ejector pin marks, but I think these are on non-visible surfaces, so that's not too much of a problem because the other part here is going to be visible. Yeah, they're okay. There are some weird little scratches just on these parts here, just sort of it's little tiny imperfections. Sort of the same on this one. Again, there just seems to be some little scratches and things on it, which is less than ideal. It's almost like flow marks. I don't think that would be typical of the era. They're just it's not great. They're not the best looking plastic parts I've seen from Airfix. I don't think this would have this isn't going to be clear. This is going to be painted. So there's like a line down there, which is not ideal. I think the sides here, there's a tiny little bit of flash there. Yeah, these parts here, I don't think these lines, if you can see them, there's like across there, and across there. I don't think they are meant to be there. They almost look like flow marks. Yeah, I can't feel them, so they're in the plastic, but I think they're flow marks. So yeah, plastic parts, I mean, molded to a moderate quality, but there are some slight imperfections in there, which are a little bit disappointing. But yeah, let's move on. So light grey plastic sprues just kind of dates this a little bit because Airfix in more recent years has been using a dark grey blend. We have sprue A over here, which contains, sorry, it's not sprue A, it's sprue C. Well, this is interesting because we've got sprue B and sprue C, but I'll talk about why we wouldn't necessarily have an A. Do we have an A? Oh no, A is the clear parts. There we go. Then that's A, B and C. That's good then. So we have our parts for our Bedford by the looks of it. They're molded to a pretty nice quality. Not much in the way of flash, maybe just a hint of flash in a few places. Molding is pretty decent. Detail level is quite good. Perhaps not quite as refined as you would see from Airfix of like modern times, but this is still a pretty decent looking kit. Ejector pin marks are on this side, so they're not on visible surfaces, apart from maybe here. You can see that there are some here, but if this is the lower side of the vehicle, then it's probably not too much of a problem. Recessed details, raised details as appropriate. Yeah, that looks fairly good. Maybe just a little bit of cleanup required in some places, but I think they should build up into quite nice representations of the vehicles. Onto this one then, we should have our parts for our, I think it's the, was that water carrier parts and Tilly parts as well. Yeah, motorbikes here. That's come out quite nicely. Obviously, I don't know what you can do about like the spokes. I don't think there is much you can do about the spokes in such a fine, in such a small scale. You'd have to include photo etch, which obviously I think Airfix wouldn't invest that extra expense. But again, the detail level is quite nice. Even the grille on the front of the bonnet here, that's quite nicely reproduced. Yeah, it's a fairly pleasant looking kit. Ejector pin marks are again on this side, but hopefully not visible. Yeah, not bad. So let's wrap up. We had 2 light grey plastic sprues as a side point. They are a little bit greasy, might benefit from a small wash. Plastic is relatively dense with a little bit of flex, so not too bad. So 2 light grey plastic sprues, nicely moulded details, maybe some ejector pin marks which might need cleaning up, but hopefully not in visible areas. A tiny hint of flash, so not too bad. Clear parts are moulded to a moderate quality, but there are some strange flow marks in the plastic which I think might be visible if you go looking for it. Not really sure what you can do about that. So hopefully I would have liked these to be a little bit better, but you know, they're usable, I think. We had 1 tiny sheet of decals which are printed to a lovely quality and shouldn't have any problems applying to the model. Colour painting instructions, which is always great to see, and our main instructions are to the kind of usual format from Airfix, maybe not quite up to the current standards, but still absolutely usable. All of that came contained within this box, which I think gives a good representation of what's included inside of it. The artwork is pretty cool. So as I mentioned, I've had this in the stash probably going on about a decade now. It's just been like piled upon with other kits as something new's been brought into the stash, and then it just sort of got forgotten about. So I think I've probably had this for about a decade, but from what I can tell online, the actual release of this was from 2014. It seems like this was the only release of it, and we've not seen it sort of before or since. This, as far as I'm aware, does actually date from a year previous when the RAF Bomber Supply Set was introduced. So the RAF Bomber Supply Set consists of this vehicle set as well as a tractor and some bomb trailers and some other bits and pieces. It seems that they've effectively just taken the sprues from that, packaged this up as a separate entity for a bit of a cheaper price. I don't recall how much this was over a decade ago, but I would be saying, you know, you wouldn't want to be spending more than about 15 odd pounds for this, probably, if you could find one. I know I have seen some on the second-hand market for about £20, but I would obviously question that because you can get the RAF Bomber resupply set for £29.99. So only for a tenner more, you can get a more recent boxing, and it comes with extra stuff. So my recommendation would be, if you do want to get these vehicles, would probably be to get the resupply set rather than looking for this boxing, unless Airfix decided maybe next year or whenever to do a re-release of this, because it just seems to be better value rather than getting this on the second-hand market. So yeah, it's a little bit of an oddity. It's a split from a set kind of thing. It's a little bit older. It's before Airfix brought in a lot of their current practices. But I think the kit still looks pretty decent. And I'm going to have to try and think about what I'm going to do with it. I need to naturally, I think, build a bomber now to make a little diorama to put these with it and maybe find some suitable figures. And with that, I think I'm going to leave this one here. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of my unboxing review and if my assessment of this kit was fair. Don't forget that we do have a Model Minutes Model Club, and if you'd like to get exclusive access to videos and other perks, check out the links in the description. Massive thanks to these Model Club members for the extra support they give the channel, helping me to create consistent content. There are other ways to help support the channel if you prefer, and again, full information is below the video. But to support this channel for free, the best way is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.